Or the fact that my husband is trying so desperately to become a furry.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the QNC After
Yes.
Welcome.
I believe were-creatures are very different than furries.
So we raided Nestor, and then he's like, "Oh my God, bye."
Yeah, he was literally wrapping up.
Chased him away.
That's standard.
Yeah.
So we're gonna buy 2 cards because
Yes.
we had 4 inspiration left over.
So
we
here
got
is
business to
quite.
transact.
So here is the first set of 2 that you can choose between.
We
I'm trying to
have-
knock this over.
So close.
We have Smoke Bomb.
Ooh.
As an action, smash this ceramic sphere on the ground within 20 feet to create a fog cloud in a 10-foot sphere for 1 minute. And we have Rejuvenating, is that spelled correctly? Rejuvenating Mana. When consumed, this potion creates 1 temporary second-level spell, which lasts for 10 minutes. We should probably keep that.
I like
Yes,
that.
let's see that one.
Well, wait. Does the fog cloud, is it
Oh, it's gone.
undissipatable the way that we discovered the present?
Yeah.
Because maybe we should keep that.
And there's the second set of 2.
We have a little spin on a single ranged attack. You put a spin on the shot and ignore all cover if the subject is within 5 feet of a point you can see.
That is like made for Odila.
Or reaction time. You gain 1 extra reaction on your turn. The rules on the numbers of spells in a turn still apply. Either of those is probably great for Odila, to
Yeah.
be
I
perfectly
don't have
honest.
any reaction things.
I thought
though.
your insight thing was in a... Is that
Bonus
a
action.
Bonus action.
No, but
attacks of opportunity
Yeah.
and shield. But
yeah.
I personally think the spin one is good because you can you do so many ranged
Avoid
attacks.
cover. Yeah. Let's keep that one.
All right. Thank you, dear.
so
All
we're not
right.
No, we are doing
We
that
doing
one.
yeah.
Yeah, the other one got winged at me.
Oh yeah.
cut.
And Ezra, what are our quotes tonight?
Oh right. Yeah, I was saying before we started that not writing down my own quotes and enjoying too much of the business table really cuts down on the
Do we
quotes.
have really been a thing?
Yes! Since like episode 2.
That's why I couldn't tell if you were
It truly
fucking
started
with us or not.
because in like the first or second episode, you made the joke about you know what 2 wizards do when they love each other very much. They share spell books, and since then, Dooya has been the primary ship of this show.
Yes.
Hilarious because there are 2 people who are actually
You can't ship the married characters.
Yes, you can.
I think they've been shipping
It's will they, won't they
Sarai
get a
and
divorce?
Adilla more than anybody else, to be perfectly honest.
Really, they're shipping me and every were creature.
You're shipping you and every winter creature.
Yes.
But what are our actual
Wear less? I don't know where.
Let's wear.
If I bite you,
Elsewhere is his line of dishware.
I was gonna say if Lester biting someone turned you into a were creature, Sabathani would have a very different skill set.
let's see. Our quotes are: "I would like trouble to stay out of me."
I like
You
that.
maneuvered out of my plans. I walk normally like a normal person does. I did write down one of mine. I trust were creatures implicitly.
Yes, because that was a good one that needed to be written down.
I think this is the episode title. Have you checked the books? I ain't a cool kid. And so has Dooya really been a thing? But I actually had a little topic for this show, and that was that first fight. Interesting that like we approached it so mechanically, and like, we were fighting these undead horrors, and none of us were worried at all. Like none of the characters, like you were literally ignoring them, and like.
Honestly, after the things that you guys have seen, that doesn't surprise me at all. Because you just come from the Shadow
That's
Realm.
what I was thinking.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah,
we
okay.
were just literally 24/7 or
Yeah.
whatever how many hours there
Like
were
constantly
in a day.
under this weight of dread. So even horrors, without that dread on you, I imagine you felt like about 10 pounds lighter.
Yeah.
From Dewey's perspective, he's arrogant, which is the reason that
Got that 20-point overconfidence.
Well, yeah, I mean, he's got he's got this new necklace, he's got shield, he's invincible until he runs out of spell slots.
What a typical young
Yeah, there
person
it is.
mindset.
All right. That 100, I like that.
I don't need a vaccine.
You guys do. Everyone.
Yeah, everyone does. You don't have spell slots. Vaccine.
I find, how do you...
Well, it's because you didn't set up the fog monster.
Yeah, that's
I mean,
the problem.
if
If
we
we
would've-
had the fog
Yeah, it
machine,
would have been so much scarier.
atmosphere right there.
Well, it is funny too because I think that this group has had kind of a trade-off of like some fights we've been a lot more mechanical about it, and some fights we've been more roleplay. Because the first fight we ran into in the Shadowfell on the bridge, we were very roleplay about. But it was also funny because I think we set ourselves up for this one being more mechanical because right up top we started making jokes about doing the science experiment of like adding the inspiration to figure out what things. And so I think that just set us on that like the math path, if you will, very early on. And so because I realized I caught it later on, and that's why I started being like, how can I flavor my bullshit?
Yeah, and from my perspective, having 12 combatants that I was running, it's very hard to be descriptive for that many, and I want to get through their turns as quickly as I can.
Yeah.
Especially 12 of the same.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to run into it because I refuse. There were other things that were going to be involved in the fight that might have been a couple of gargoyles and a wraith, or a white.
One of
Yeah,
them.
we already did one of those.
Yeah, we're double.
Exactly. Partially because you've already done that, and partially because you have other things. You have other problems.
Like a evil book spirit.
Evil book
Evil
spirit.
bug spirit.
I need to get bit by this were-raven.
We need to find a were-rabbit. And I think
We're rabbit.
Oh, I'll just bring in my running NPC. Anytime there's a one shot, I have like one NPC
Vlad?
character that shows up. She has maybe a dire rabbit familiar. No one's quite sure, but this rabbit is terrifying.
The entire rabbit.
It's the rabbit
it
from Monty
it bit
Python.
ooze to death, effectively. So no one's quite sure what that is. That's a whole different
I think
side.
that's a
plot.
beaver, actually.
Maybe. It's very cute and terrifying. No, it was interesting because having that big of a horde to deal with, it is kind of just we're trying to get through this and keep track of who's been injured, who hasn't.
Because like
what
one of
we're
my
fighting. Yeah.
one of my dream scenarios, like I love the last stand, like the night in the house that the undead are trying to break in, and I've always thought like mechanically, how would you kind of do something like that where it's just wave after wave after wave, kind of trying to wear you down, but also like how do you sort of put the to use a loaded term, the horror element in that, you know, and I think some of it has to be role play, but like, yeah, I don't.
Well, I was down to one spell slot, so I was getting horrified. I
mean,
one
one-
dagger, you know.
One mechanic could do that if you are working with a singular horde is more of the trap mechanic, in which it's like initiative 20 and initiative 10 something happens.
Oh yeah, okay, yeah, that's kind of cool.
So that way, when the horde does happen, like, and that's one of my gripes with combat, when it's like there is a singular enemy and you just stick them all in the same initiative, it's very easy for players to be like, okay, so I know I got 3 turns to ensure that that person stays alive, and then this person stays alive, and I can kill that one
this
too.
is one of the instances where I would actually really like to be on something like Roll20, because then I can give each individual creature its own initiative. I have had that done to me in games that I am in, and where it's like there's 15 kobolds, and every one of them has their own place in the initiative tracker.
That might be a bit excessive.
But
if you break it into like 3 go at a time, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
you know,
so the
pack
groups.
tactics.
The
Yeah, I've
different
done
groups
horde
could
fights
have.
There could also be something like, you know, Warhammer has a fear thing where like certain monsters cause fear, and you have to like make, you know, it's your willpower to be able to like approach it and attack
Well,
it.
and that's where something like a trap mechanic or like a legendary action or a lair action can come into play. I think part of it is that at the level we're at, we're playing at a level 3 adventure. So honestly, you know, 5 of us going up against these 12 things, that in and of itself, the test is action economy in this fight. It's not necessarily meant to be at that perilous. It's about
I want to,
outlasting.
but I want to
Yeah.
I want to reframe that. It should never be about action economy. It should be about the story and, you know, like action economy is the least interesting part of.
For some.
Yeah. Well, action economy though is the way that most 5e D&D is designed though, and since you are less inclined for the D&D mechanic versus other mechanics, that absolutely makes sense. Again, I'm much more strongly a role player, so I've run horde fights before in my home game, and I gave every type of monster. There were like 6 different types of monster. Each of them were on their own initiative, but the whole system of it was to just like make it as unrelenting as possible and try to have different things.
Now
happening in that respect.
now Ghouls have a thing about it. You have to make a save if you get hit.
Yes.
Yeah.
And if you fail, if you get cut with the claw and you fail the DC 10 Constitution saving throw, then you are paralyzed for a minute.
I mean that right there. I
Right.
mean, Dewey would have been toast.
Yeah.
If you didn't shield every-
Booyah would have been. Well, no, you have a high con
Well, that's
now.
Well, yeah, but if I would have, I mean, Dewey was potentially getting hit 2 to 3 times in a round, so he's shielding.
So, but here's my point: is that it shouldn't be the mechanics that do that. It should be the character of like, oh my god, this thing is trying to, there's this horrible slavering thing in front of me. Like, how would I roleplay that? Am I the valorous knight who's like, haha, or am I like,
Or are you dancing, trying to get further away than you? Booyah! You don't have to be the fastest. You just have to be.
Well,
faster
I mean,
than
but
you
that,
are.
yeah, I mean, like, I intentionally don't have a hand weapon, because I don't want to get, I don't want to get in a fight, so I will step away. But like, that I would love to see D&D incentivize more of that behavior as opposed to incentivize if I go here and do this and do that and and.
Well, but what you're talking about then is you're talking about a different mechanical system, because currently D&D doesn't. And I agree with you. I think that's much more interesting, and I am way more inclined. I think James and I have both done this several times now, where we have actively chosen to fail saves,
Right?
Because it makes sense in character, and it's about the role play.
And see, it's not about the mechanics. Like, you could do this in D&D.
Well, I mean, you could, but what I'm
What
saying
you have
is
to do is not go, now I'm in fight mode. You have to stay, I'm still in roleplay mode.
Well,
But also, then where did the dice come in? Because, like, I think I'm the only person who got actively hit with a claw attack, because I'm the only one who had to make the con save. Do I just say that I'm gonna actively choose to fail that because my character is distracted?
No, but
Do I
maybe that
accept
changes your
the
interaction with the thing when
Sure.
you realize that it can do that, and then you're like, I got to get away from this.
Well,
or,
I mean,
something.
if one person would have been paralyzed,
Yeah, that would have
that would have
absolutely
honestly
changed
that would have
everything.
changed the entire battlefield, because suddenly we would have had that. Oh my God, they're gonna get critted
Yeah.
like crazy
Yeah.
And-
mechanically.
Yep.
And there was roleplay. Like Odila, if before her turn, she was surrounded by 4, and luckily 2 like
The grease.
failed in
Yeah.
the grease. Because otherwise she was going to disengage and
Which
dash
you've
out
done
of it.
before, like that fight where you like zipped away, and
But
you had that also
the
like, sorry, Dewey.
circumstances changed, and her character, if it's only 2 that are really,
And I think this fight really was an example of that, of like a lot of my, like, I did no healing this fight because nobody ever seemed like they were in enough danger for me to bother with that. If somebody, if Dewey had actually taken a lot more of those hits, if you'd run out of shield and been taking a lot more, then absolutely I would have started risking opportunity attacks to get closer to you and to heal you, but I didn't need to.
And I don't think we were. I know it to you because you don't understand the decision making that's happening to us. It's things like we're just doing mechanical. Because what I could have done is I only attacked the people in front of me because in character I think she would have done that. But I could have gotten sneak attack on the ones that were near Dewey, and I didn't do that because it would not make sense for Odila to ignore the things threatening her in her character. Yeah, she's
'cause
not that selfless
I want
to
be
ignore
clear.
just to get maximum damage.
There was nothing pejorative towards anybody at this table. All of my pejorative nature is towards the system that forces these unfortunate choices upon us. But I think part of my argument is that it shouldn't. The mechanics should be secondary, even in D&D.
Well, and I think that I agree, and I think that because they're not, I really like playing at this table specifically because we do a lot of role playing around that and justifying the mechanical choices or the spontaneous dice rolls. Flavor. Like, great example, when I think it was the first fight in the Shadowfell, you rolled the natural 1 on the Eldritch Blast, and so we decided that it hit a party member. I think it was between me and Dewey. And so we decided you made an argument for it's much funnier if it hits Dewey because they just, whatever it was. That's a great example of we're playing within the mechanics that are presented to us, but then we're flavoring it to make it much more interesting storytelling and not just about, I didn't succeed at what I was doing. because D&D, unfortunately, they're moving more toward this. Like Wild and the Witchlight is fascinating because it is entirely designed that you can theoretically get through that entire campaign with basically no combat. You can role play your way out of every encounter if your party chooses to. So they're trying to move towards that, but they haven't, until we get 7.3, they have not changed the mechanic enough yet. So they're trying to find ways to work that within the mechanic. And I think a lot of that is due to tables like this that are like, we don't like it just being crunchy numbers. We want it to have role-playing, and we want to have consequences, and we want to have incentives for playing flaws.
But I do want to make a
ranks.
I was just going to say you run into two sets of problems with if let's say you take dice mechanic out and you go, okay, we're going to role play through some stuff. Some people might not be great role players, or not be comfortable being so outgoing and doing all of that. Whereas in D&D you have the persuasion skill, right? So you can roll and you can maybe succeed, maybe fail, but it's not reliant on your person role-playing skills.
Which gives a lot of people more comfort in doing stuff, especially if they're at tables that encourage things like role-playing, but are like, take your time. We're not going to throw you into the deep end.
Yeah, the non-combat stuff, I find that actually a better solution. I like that solution. The combat stuff, that's
Well, and it's getting less crunchy, because I played some Pathfinder and was like, I hate this.
Yeah.
I really hate this. And that's what 3.5 was, and we've gotten a lot better coming into making it less crunchy. It's going to keep going.
I think, maybe even that could have just been on us too, right? So, I mean, Dewey, I when I cast Shatter, I should have said, plug your ears, things are gonna get loud, and you've just been kind of more teenagery and it's.
But again, we've done a lot of that. I think we incidentally kind of started from a meta place as players of kind of being like, ooh, we're focusing on the numbers, and so I don't think we entered in the same way as
and whenever there are 12 things, unless you want a fight that's going to continue on to next session,
right? And
you're focusing on
take out a lot of the role play that you otherwise would keep in.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's and that's a trade-off in something like this. When there are hordes of enemies, I didn't want to be in that fight for 3 hours.
And one thing
you didn't have to live through were-rats.
No.
Well, okay, you didn't have to live through the amount of were-rats.
You did not have to live through him not being able to hit us, because the two of us had very high AC, and the made to lose fight took 3 hours to lose.
Yeah, we talked about that.
Yeah.
But one thing I noticed, and this is like a personal thing, I don't play dumb characters. I really, and that's like a personal thing for me. I don't play low intelligence characters. It's because for me, as a person, I know I am very, I play tactical games. I play strategic games. So when we get into combat, it's so easy for me to justify. It's like, oh yes, my character's intelligent. He would not do this stupid thing, which in a way maintains roleplay, but also speaks to.
And I want to make every poor choice that makes the character.
You and Damon Lindelof have the same screenwriting philosophy,
which I'm also trying to do with Wuya, because I did it in the Shadowfell where I tried to cast sleep on an undead thing. James should have known that it was undead and it wouldn't work.
Wuya should have known.
Wuya also should have known. But we can also chalk it up to he was feeling emotional and sentimental, and it was a waste of a turn.
Before I forget, I want to, in the nicest way possible, and again, nothing pejorative about this table, but if you want to check out Transplanar, which is Connie Chang running that table, does so many cool things to make D&D combat better. Watch some of that show. Watch my conversation with her, but watch that show. They make combat cinematic, fast. They make everything interesting. Everything matters. It's fantastic.
I will say too, James, I like that because I have the same problem, but it's because Alondra only plays one singular type of character, as we've learned. But I like, and then to your point too about you like playing smart characters, you like playing dumb characters. but that is reflected in the role play, and it's the mechanics reflecting the role play, and I think that's really fun. You know, Wu Ya is a necromancer. He deals with death, so he understands what these undead things were. So it makes perfect sense that he would be able to identify these things and make smart choices about fighting them. That might not be the case later on. Similarly, like, you know, Elspeth in Frost Maiden is a hyper intelligent. She's a librarian from a cloister. And so the whole running shtick there is, can I roll to see if I know what this thing is? Because the player knows what it is, and if I roll for it, then I can justify my character. Now, I have rolled nat ones on that, and it's just like, nope, never heard of this thing before, and then we throw any knowledge of that out the window and make dumb choices, and, you know, things like that. And I think that's a way to fold the mechanics into working for you and working with the role play in really interesting ways, too. So...
It just shows how much I like all of you that I'm willing to play D&D with you.
You have been here for, what, 15 sessions now? I'm very
I keep
impressed.
hoping I'm going to die.
And yet now you have one of the most HPs out of all of us. You ain't dying, sir.
There's a reason why I never give you inspiration or healing, and it's because I know you're trying to die. It's not because
I'm trying to die in the back.
Lester's going to die one of 3 ways. Death by werebite, autoerotic asphyxiation, or somebody destroys all of his clothes. Those are like the only 3 things that are running.
Noted.
Oh no, there was a fire only in your wardrobe in a place that literally can't be set on fire.
That's not true.
What do we do?
That's not true. Paper can't burn.
Paper can't
Only
burn?
candle keep.
And I'm not going to wear linen. I would never wear linen.
Oh,
Yeah.
goodness.
Let's wrap this thing up.
Yes, as always, it's been an interesting conversation with this particular group. Thank you all so much for staying a little bit later because we're over 20 minutes at this point. Thank you so much for joining us. Patreon friends, you are amazing. We appreciate you. We cannot begin to say it enough. You are the reason why we are able to do these things. So thank you a million times over, and we will see you next week.
Wrap it up like a burrito.